are joined by an amazing, spectacular guest you're going to love hearing from, Erin Bos-Lun, who is Executive Director of Yes, 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 Please, Men4Choice. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks so much for having me on, Kristen. It's great to be with you.
I'm so glad you're here because as reproductive rights, reproductive justice, reproductive anything, in fact, healthcare is under attack. The work of Men4Choice is so necessary, so important, and so powerful. I'm wondering if you could just bring our listeners and our audience into what is Men4Choice and where are you?
Yeah, the basic idea of Men for Choice is pretty simple. It's to get passively pro-choice men off the sidelines and into the fight as allies, supporters of reproductive freedom. We see a big problem in this country, which is the horrible assault on abortion rights, and also the fact that more than 50% of men in this country are pro-choice, believe that people should have the freedom to control their own body, and yet almost none of them are doing anything about it. So the way we work to solve that problem is through ongoing educational programs, in particular, a fellowship that's 10 weeks long for young men, and continuous communications where we're meeting young men where they are, speaking to them constantly online and in other places. And through our C4, Men for Choice advocacy, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, showing up in big ways to support Planned Parenthood and local partners so that men are showing up to knock doors, make donations, do all the things that need to be done to put points on the board to advance the cause of reproductive freedom.
It's so important, so important. Okay, so before we go into discussion, because a big part of your work is bringing more people in, how can people get involved?
Well, one easy way, if you're interested in learning more about us, is we just launched a new documentary on the first 10 years of our organization. We were started in Chicago, and the documentary called Men for Choice Off the Sidelines is now viewable on YouTube. So search Men for Choice with a four documentary on YouTube, and you'll be able to learn more about what we're about. You can also go to our website, and we have a take action form on the website where if you fill it out, a member of our team will call you. We're not like we're the opposite of the chat bot plague this country is faced with right now. You will get a call from an organizer who's probably an alumni of one of our programs, and they'll be sure to set you up with the right way to take action.
I love that so much. So, people, it is men, MEN, four, number four, choice, CHOICE. So, men, the number four, choice. So, I'm really excited that you're on. So, you mentioned that you are walking the talk. By you, I mean all the people in Men4Choice. So I won't put all the responsibility just on you yourself alone,
Mhm.
Erin, but you've been building a movement that has been walking the talk and have played a critical role in places like Virginia and Florida. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit of those inspirational tidbits about how Men4Choice has been engaged across the country.
Yeah, well, we started in Chicago 10 years ago, and the idea at the beginning was pretty simple, was how do we get men to show up and do stuff to support all of the women and impacted people who have been leading on this fight for so long. And for the first 5 years, we played a role in coalitions to pass laws in Illinois. We knocked doors in Illinois, and then started expanding nationally. And around that time, I came on staff and we created a fellowship where 18 to 28-year-old men are able to learn about the issue of reproductive freedom and also not just learn about it, but do stuff. So they host three peer-to-peer educational programs where it's young men talking to other young men who they know about the harm caused by abortion bans and then outlining the steps that fit each person's interests about, okay, you see this as wrong. What are you going to do now? And so we've been continually building our base. We're now primarily active in 9 states, but operate throughout the country. And we organize year round. We train young men, we bring them in, we make sure that they're connected with the right opportunities to do things and not just throw up their hands and say, oh, the country's in such a bad place right now. We all know that. The question is, what are you going to do? And we're continually taking action at election time and well beyond elections through our educational programs.
In Virginia last year, Men4Choice knocked on 10,000 doors in a month to help elect pro-choice candidates, and also in Miami helped elect the first pro-choice woman mayor. So those are two spectacular items of brilliance of Men4Choice. What are your favorite people that you've helped elect or activations?
Well, what you just said is a great story in itself. As our programs have continued to get bigger, the thing we find is that we've created this community of young men who are interested in doing more. And so, we have 41 staff in total now at Men4Choice. 34 of them are alumni of our fellowship program. And we sent three of them through Men4Choice advocacy to work on the Virginia race to elect Abigail Spanberger as governor and to elect four pro-choice candidates to the state house supporting an on-the-ground partner, Repro Rising Virginia. We went to them and we said, we can do a lot of stuff for you. What would be the ways that it would be most useful? And we did. And, there's a tendency, I think, to forget sometimes just how bleak the mood was last September. There were a lot of people saying, well, are elections even going to matter? Can you even do anything? You know that when you do stuff, you never win. And our guys were on the ground mobilizing other young men to show up and say, we can do something. And here it is this Saturday at 10 or whenever it was that week. And that was very successful. I mean, the country, the world heard about the election of Abigail Spanberger. But what's even cooler about that whole sequence was 72 hours after that, we moved that team down and brought two more in. And they immediately started knocking doors for Eileen Higgins to become the first pro-choice woman mayor of Miami. And I'll tell you, I'm from Miami. You want to talk about people saying, oh, why are you wasting your time? What are you doing? It's Florida. Throw up your hands. Nothing you do is going to matter anyways. We didn't do that. Our guys didn't do that. And in a month, they knocked, there's actually 11,000 doors, but we rounded to 10
Wow.
because 10's easy to remember. And Eileen Higgins was elected the first pro-choice woman mayor of Miami, the first woman mayor ever. So when you show up and you commit to a disciplined course of action, you get spectacular results. And what's really exciting is we then hired several of those guys who are now organizing on the ground in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Virginia. And we just launched another version of our fellowship this Monday, where we're training once again over 100 new young men who are going to be bringing in other young men and showing here's the way to take action to support women and to stand up and be the kind of guy who does something rather than just saying, there's nothing I can do.
I love this so much. And one of the things you said when you first got on is that the majority of people in the United States of America are actually pro-choice. Sometimes we hear the naysayers the loudest because they are just squawking. But actually, more people agree with Men4Choice, with pro-choice, than disagree. And I'm wondering if you can dive into that a little bit more for our listeners and our audience. What does the polling say about choice?
Oh, I'd love nothing more than to talk about this. Well, because there's a misconception, and it's a
Exactly.
misconception that's really basic. Because, I mean, Kristen, you of all people know, and I'm guessing a lot of your listeners know, that if you go to any pro-choice event, it's going to be 90% women and 10% boyfriends and husbands. And so, because we don't see any men doing anything, we assume that the absence of men represents they're not there in the issue. It just isn't true. So, the Pew poll, for example, has consistently found that about 61% of men in America believe that abortion should be legal in all or most circumstances. That's 61%. And it's barely lower for men than for women, although it's a majority of both men and women. There was a Gallup poll last April that some of your listeners may be familiar with, where there was a real concern throughout the movement because it said only 44% of men self-identified as pro-choice. But here's the thing. The same set of factors that were looked at identified that 60% of men, not when asked, are you pro-choice, but do you believe abortion should be legal in all or most circumstances? 60% said yes. So that shows an interesting and worrying 16-point gap between men who believe that abortion should be legal, but won't take on what I think is probably because they see it as a feminist label and therefore not their label. That's the work we do to get them to feel more comfortable stepping in to support women in that way. But they're there on the issue. And on young men, which is what we focus on, there was a lot of talk in 2024, and rightly so, about how young men moved to the political right and voted for Donald Trump in record numbers. Well, the Harvard Institute of Politics did the most rigorous study in the country around attitudes of young men in that same year. And they found 57% of young men said that access to legal abortion was a very important factor in choosing what state they would live in. And yet 55% of men voted for Donald Trump, who was responsible for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So we see the disconnect as rooted in a couple key barriers that we talk about in the documentary. The most important of which is that men just don't understand the harm caused by abortion bans. We were
Mhm.
founded as an organization because our founder in 2014 learned about attacks happening at abortion rights on the state level. And he went up to the speaker presenting and said, "How did I not know any of this?" And she said, "Well, guys never know this. They just don't think about this." And that put us on the path where we're on. And so we know from experience that you can build a strong community of men who are ready to take action, but they need to understand the harm. They need to see that they have a stake in this. They need an on-ramp and they need a playbook. And that's what we exist to do, because we're committed to this next generation of men doing better than the last 50 years, who have left this to be something that is only faced by those whose body is under attack. We don't think it should be that way.
100% agree. And also, I want to lift up again to all our listeners that more than 60% of people in America believe that there should be reproductive freedom. And that is really, really, really important. And we're not just saying that polls are saying that. When you look at what's happened with ballot measures in red, purple, and blue states across the country, you can see that across the country, no matter where people live, when it comes time to cast a ballot for reproductive freedom, people cast a ballot for reproductive freedom. So when you're listening to some of those Republican thought leaders and Donald Trump, just know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. The majority of people actually believe and are on the same side as Men for Choice, not the other way around. So the midterm elections, we have about 2.5 minutes left. What's happening in the midterm elections related to Men for Choice?
Yeah, we're gonna be active because there's just so many passive pro-choice men in this country who, if you talk to them, if you organize them, are willing to step up. We're going to be running an aggressive election program through Men for Choice advocacy, where we mobilize our members, our base, all of the men we've been organizing, and take action in at least 7 states, possibly more. And we're going to run 2 actions in every single state that we're active in. And we work with Planned Parenthood, we work with more local groups, and we say, what are your priorities? And we get large groups of men to show up for them. And every single time, we tend to get the same feedback, which is not only, wow, I can't believe 22 guys showed up to knock doors for repro rights. This is the most men I've ever seen show up to take action for reproductive rights. We hear that a lot. The other one we hear a lot is, this is the most men I've ever seen show up to take political action, period. And so I think it goes to show that if you make the effort to engage men as stakeholders, and we don't think, by the way, that's the duty of women to do. We see it as our role to organize that base, have it ready, and send it where the people who have been sounding the alarm about attacks on abortion rights for generations, where they say the priorities are. And we will get large, energized, organized groups of men to show up, to knock doors, make calls, send text, whatever is needed, so that we are pursuing the victory that the American people deserve on this issue, that reflects where we are on this issue.
100%. So we only have a little bit left, but for people who just joined us, how can people get involved, sign up, be a part of Men for Choice?
Yeah, well, you can go to our website, Men for Choice with a four, men4choice.org, and you fill out our take action form, and an actual person will contact you and talk with you. That's one way. You can go to YouTube, and we have a new documentary on our first 10 years. You can search Men for Choice documentary. It's 30 minutes long, and you could learn more about us there and find a form to get involved there. And if you happen to be in Chicago this Wednesday, February 25th, we're doing a screening of that documentary at the Center on Halsted, which is also where Men for Choice held its first event 10 years ago. So it's a full circle, recommitting to the fight in the city where we started, Center on Halsted in Chicago, this Wednesday at 6 p.m. or at any point, anywhere, if you are watching it on YouTube.
Thanks so much for being on. Thanks for all you do. Aaron Bos-Lun, Executive Director of Men for Choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.